Have you ever had a character from a movie that you really liked, and then later you find out that the actor who played them is a raging alcoholic, a major druggie, or committed self-non-existence? That's the disappointment I felt about Ant-Man 3, Quantumania. Hi, hello, what's up, Jellycups? My name is Crispy Jelly, and yes, today I'm reviewing Quantumania, or Ant-Man 3. Before I go into the details, I guess I should recap the other two movies. Ant-Man 1, ex-convict gets the powers to shrink and grow. Ant-Man 2, ex-convict's girlfriend's mom is saved. Okay, with that out of the way, let's do a plot summary of Quantumania. We've got Scott, and he's living the good life. He's famous, he's got the girl, and he's a superhero. Life is pretty sweet, excluding some conflict with his daughter, which I'll get to later. So Scott's daughter, Cassie, made a radio thing that broadcasts to the quantum realm, but then things go all kerfuffly and it somehow gets turned into a black hole thing that somehow sucks them into the quantum realm. Somehow. They end up in clumps, which should be impossible because of the minuteness of the quantum realm, and they somehow breathe without masks despite being smaller than oxygen. The two clumps that were somehow close enough to each other to somehow be clumps were Scott and Cassie, and the other clump was Hope, who is Scott's girlfriend, or wife, or whatever, and her parents. So Scott's clump was attacked by monsters, but then were saved by quantum beings that somehow look like humans. If you haven't guessed by now, there are a lot of somehows in this movie, which I'll get to later when I explain sort of after the plot summary. I'll get to that. Also, the trope of the aliens, or ancient beings, or whatnot, all looking humanoid, or like humans, is so uncreative. However, Pleb was good. Anyway, so Hope's clump goes to a quantum bar within a quantum city and gets ambushed, and they have to steal a quantum ship and escape. Apparently, some guy called the Conqueror is tracking down Hope's mom, Janet, because they have history, and Scott's group was also being tracked because of their relation with Janet. The Conqueror sends some dude called the Hunter, along with a bunch of troops, to destroy the quantum village Scott was in and to catch or kill him. After a bunch of CGI fights, we get the big reveal. The Hunter is Darren, the villain from the first Ant-Man, who becomes MODOK when he ends up in the quantum realm. MODOK captures Scott and daughter and takes them to quantum jail, where MODOK tries to tell his backstory. They keep doing this thing, though, where they have Scott interrupt MODOK during his monologues, and it really kills the mood for a supposed terrifying villain.
Rebuilt me, made me the ultimate weapon. A mechanized organism designed only for kill.
Oh, MODOK. Oh, I get it. It's an acronym. It's an acronym.
MODOK isn't really supposed to be comical. He's supposed to be unbelievably intelligent and very powerful. But in this movie, they turn him into a joke. Back to Hope's group, we learn the history of Janet and the Conqueror. They somehow crashed into the same spot in the quantum realm, and the Conqueror had a ship that could somehow go anywhere in the universe or the multiverse, but it was broken. So the Conqueror, whose name is Kang, as you may have already guessed, and Janet somehow fixed Kang's ship. But as they were about to leave, Janet's brain Bluetooths to Kang's head through the ship, and she sees Kang had destroyed universes and had been exiled to the quantum realm by unknown people. So now knowing that Kang was a bad guy, Janet uses one of her super growers and grows his ship's core until it explodes and becomes unable to be used. But Kang had enough technology left to take over the quantum realm, which is where we are today. So Kang asks Scott and tells him that he needs to steal something for him, which is of course the core within the core that Janet blew up earlier. Also, we learn that Kang is gay.
I don't live in a straight line.
So Scott goes into the blown up core thing Janet blew up to get it for him before Kang kills his daughter, and Hope's group meets up in the core as well. The core is retrieved and a fight breaks out, ending up with Kang having Janet, Scott's daughter, and the core, so he won overall. All hope seems lost, but then Hank, Hope's father, comes in with a bunch of super evolved ants who apparently got trapped in a time thing and evolved their own super civilization. Somehow. And Scott's daughter starts freeing the quantum civilians. MODOK is sent to fight Scott's daughter, and Kang starts launching his evil plan of blasting his quantum army back into reality to take over. All hell breaks loose, and the rebels that Scott's daughter had gathered start fighting the army that Kang had gathered. It's just another army fight. Scott's daughter beats MODOK and tells him not to be a dick.
Tell me what to be.
I don't know, just don't be a dick.
It's too late. Look at me. I'm such a dick.
It's never too late to stop being a dick.
Comedy.
Giant Scott then breaks the city and hugs Giant Daughter and all seems well. However, Kang is still there. He starts blasting. So Ant-Man and friends must stop him. They try and then they fail, and Kang gives another monologue. But then Hank comes in clutch with the super ants! The ants can't get to Kang, but then MODOK, or now Darren again, I guess, redeems himself by charging in and sacrificing himself, but also allowing the ants in at Kang. The ants beat the stuffing out of Kang as Scott and friends make their escape, but Kang returns for one last fight. Said fight ensues, Kang gets sucked into the core and supposedly dies, and Hope and Scott are rescued when Scott's daughter is somehow able to get the portal working again. The movie ends with a scene of Scott on Earth thinking something terrible had been unleashed. Okay, so, with the recap out of the way, what did I think of the movie? Well, let's start with the good parts. The animation was cool. Alright, let's talk about what was wrong with the film. Okay, so first of all, Quantumania was way too long. It was 2 hours, and you could just feel how bloated it was. Half the scenes were just these long, staring scenes, and a lot of it was just kind of irrelevant and didn't need to be there. There were also a lot of technical issues within the universe itself, such as breathing with no air, and ending up together in the quantum realm, despite the quantum realm being enormous, and the fact that the quantum radar from the beginning turned into a portal rather than just malfunctioning or exploding or whatever. Which makes no sense, because it was made to be like a radar or a signal. It wasn't meant to be a portal, and yet somehow it had the capabilities of being a portal. Also, Scott's daughter was an annoying and unnecessary addition to the team. I mean, she's not really an addition, but they really killed off her character in this one. She went from kind of being like the little kid that was, you know, loving of her father and like adored him and whatnot, and he did cool things for her, to this like insufferable squirt who's over here constantly getting distracted by stuff around her. She keeps seeing the suffering around her and is like, let's stop working on getting supplies and weapons and instead create a revolution with no plan. And when Scott's like, no, and she's just like, you just don't care. It's not like we need to be worried. We're just trapped in the quantum realm with very few resources and trying to pick a fight against the strongest being the universe has ever seen. Another thing about Quantumania that I think really needed to be thought about before adding it in was how expanded the Marvel Universe already is. And should we really go forward with the Kang side of things before kind of focusing in on the little stuff, right? Because what made the Avengers such a good series was us being able to see every individual character first in like their own movie and kind of learn about the backstory. And the buildup of the villain really came up at a price. But that price was worth it. The price was many movies built up one central villain, or at least one central idea that could turn into a villain or come into the possession of a villain, and then had to be fought off. Versus what they're doing with Kang is they're including it in like 2 movies and a show that not many people are watching. And then they're going to build him into the big villain of the next thing, which is on such a large scale that how can you not possibly have nihilism come into effect? Because we're at the point where we're fighting on multiverses, or like universes or whatever. We've gotten to such a huge scale that how can anything possibly matter if you can just fetch another universe? This is the problem with Multiverse of Madness, but it really wasn't directed at that point. Now we're getting into the point where somebody is threatening the multiverse. And so now I think we should question, is this a good idea? Should we really try and take down the multiverse right now? Because if he's got the power to do that, there's going to have to be some kind of key to everything in order to fight that off. You got to be really careful on how you approach this in order to make it good. And I'm just very concerned that they're not going to. So, anyway, to sum up the movie, the characters were meh, the story is confuddled and not super enlightening, it's bloated and lots of parts are unnecessary, the fight scenes are meh, a lot of CGI and bad choreography in some areas, which is surprising considering the caliber of movie industry we're working with here, and the villains are meh. They ruined MODOK, they made him into a joke, and then they killed him off in the same movie he was introduced in. And Kang just does not feel like a very strong villain the way they portray him. He's meant to be a strong villain, but he doesn't feel like one. Because they killed off one of him already in this movie. And then there was an after credits scene that shows a whole arena of them, and it just feels wrong. Because they're all like shouting and clamoring and stuff, and they feel like barbarians. They don't feel like conquerors. They don't feel like how they should be. Or not even how they should be. They just don't feel very intimidating. I think part of that is just a lack of subtlety anymore. They don't have the idea of kind of concealing their true power anymore. And not the true power as in like every time there's something bad that comes up they can beat it. But I'm saying I don't think they have the level of subtlety, of calm collectedness that kind of shows they have got power, but they're not using it because they don't need to. Another issue with Quantumania is that a lot of things rely on chance in order to happen. So many things were kind of last moment, and it's like, if that hadn't happened, then this wouldn't have happened, and that wouldn't have happened, and the conclusion would have been befuddled and all that. All in all, it just doesn't make me very excited for future installments unless they really start fixing things. Well guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you enjoy future videos. And make sure to tell me your thoughts in the comments. Before I end, I do want to say I've got some pretty interesting things coming up. I'm almost done with school stuff. There's still a little bit more busyness in life. But once I get that taken care of, I've got a lot planned for the future. And so I'm going to start trying to pump out some interesting stuff. Once I can figure it all out and get it worked out. So I got some more movie reviews I want to do in the future. Some more in things in film that piss me off. And a fair few other ones. So hope to see you guys out there. So yeah, bye.